There is one absolute rule in the history of European conquest: when the capital city falls, the war is over. For centuries, this was the geometry of power. You march your banners into the enemy's seat of government, you seize their palaces, and you wait for the ink to dry on the treaty of surrender. It is a gentleman's game of chess played with hundreds of thousands of lives. In 1805, Napoleon marched into Vienna, and the Austrians folded. In 1806, he took Berlin, and the Prussians collapsed. By 1812, the French Empire believes this rule is as unbreakable as the law of gravity. Napoleon Bonaparte, the master of Europe, leading the Grande Armée, a gargantuan force of 612,000 men, has spent months chasing the Russian army across 1,000 miles of dust and heat. He has endured the carnage of Borodino, where 70,000 men fell in a single day. He has paid the price in blood, and now, he expects the payoff. The entity that holds this belief is the most sophisticated military machine the world has ever seen. The French marshals, the veteran grenadiers, and the emperor himself all know the script. Moscow is the heart of Russia. Once the French eagles are perched atop the Kremlin, Tsar Alexander I must sue for peace. There is no other logical outcome. But in September 1812, the Russian soul proves that it does not play by the logic of the Enlightenment. One city, one desperate governor, and a million leaders of spirits change the world forever. Meet Adrien Bourgogne. He is 27 years old, a sergeant in the elite Imperial Guard. He is tall, hardened by years of campaigning, and wears the iconic tall bearskin cap that marks him as a grumbler, the most feared soldiers in Europe. He has survived the scorching heat of the Russian summer, the dysentery that thinned his ranks, and the terrifying thunder of the Russian artillery. To Bourgogne and his comrades, the sight of Moscow on September 14 is a miracle. They stand on the Hill of Salutation, looking down at the golden domes of the Kremlin reflecting the autumn sun. They see a city of 250,000 people, filled with palaces, warehouses of grain, and cellars of wine. This is the promised land. The historical context is dire. Napoleon's army has already been halved by disease, exhaustion, and the scorched earth tactics the Russians used during their retreat. The horses are dying by the hundreds every day because there is no fodder. Napoleon needs Moscow to be his winter quarters. Without its roofs and its food, 100,000 men will be exposed to the elements in the middle of a wasteland. Strategic victory hinges on a single moment, the surrender of the keys to the city. Napoleon waits at the gates. He waits 1 hour. 2 hours. 3. But no one comes. No boyars, no officials, no humble peasants. Bourgogne marches into the city with his regiment, and the sound of their boots on the cobblestones is eerie. It is a ghost city. 240,000 people have vanished into the woods. The shops are locked. The houses are empty. Napoleon takes up residence in the Kremlin, unsettled by the silence. He does not know that the governor of Moscow, Count Rostophin, has left behind a parting gift. He has released the city's criminals, handed them torches, and removed every single fire engine and water pump from the city. Bourgogne settles into a lavish house, finding a silk bed and a larder of food. He thinks he is safe. He faces the challenge of a silent city, unaware that the air is already beginning to smell of turpentine. It starts at 8 p.m. A small plume of smoke rises from the bazaar. Then another from the Solyanka district. Bourgogne is jolted from a light sleep by the smell of burning wood. He runs to the window. The sky isn't black, it's a bruised, pulsating orange. By midnight, the wind picks up, a dry, fierce equinoctial gale. It catches the sparks and flings them across the wooden rooftops. You do not fight a fire in 1812 Moscow. You watch it devour the world. Napoleon is woken by his aides. The Kremlin itself is surrounded by fire. He looks out and sees the horizon is a solid wall of flame. What a people, he cries. They are Scythians. What a resolution. He is forced to flee through a secret path, his coat scorched by the heat, as the sparks rain down like golden snow. Bourgogne and his men are ordered into the streets to catch the arsonists. The scenes are chaotic. He sees Russian police officers deliberately smashing lanterns into curtains. He sees a beggar dragging a mattress soaked in oil into a cellar. He orders his men to fire. The musket balls rip through the darkness. One arsonist falls, then another. But for every one they kill, 10 more appear from the shadows. The fire creates its own weather. A firestorm. The temperature in the streets reaches over 1,000 degrees. Bourgogne describes the sound, not a crackle, but a continuous, low-frequency roar, like 1,000 furnaces working at once. Think about the sensory horror. The air is so hot it blisters the skin on Bourgogne's face through his bearskin cap. The smoke is so thick that men are suffocating in the middle of the street. He sees molten lead dripping from the roofs of churches. He watches as a grand palace, filled with French wounded, is swallowed in less than 10 minutes. 1,500 buildings gone. 4,000 buildings. 7,000 buildings. By the third day, 75% of Moscow is a blackened skeleton. Napoleon returns to the ruins of the Kremlin. He is stunned. He waits. He sends letters to the Tsar. Peace, he asks. No answer. A truce? No answer. If you find this kind of forgotten history and the gritty reality of military life as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage and the brutal truth of the past deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. It is October 19th, Napoleon realizes the trap has closed. He has no food. He has no shelter. He orders the retreat. 100,000 soldiers march out of Moscow. They are followed by 40,000 wagons filled with loot, paintings, silver, gold, and fur coats. It looks like a victory parade. It is actually a funeral procession. On November 6th, the rule of the Russian winter arrives. The temperature drops to -20 degrees. Then -30. Bourgogne describes the transition from soldier to animal. The horses die first, their blood freezing in their veins. Without horses, the wagons are abandoned. The gold is dumped in the snow. Without wagons, the food is gone. He fires his musket at a Russian scout, but his fingers are so frostbitten the skin peels off onto the cold steel. He sees men fighting over the raw meat of a dead horse. He sees soldiers whose eyes have frozen shut, wandering into the woods to die in silence. The countdown of the Grande Armée begins. 90,000 men. 70,000 men. 40,000 men. At the Berezina River, the final horror unfolds. 2 flimsy bridges. 30,000 desperate stragglers. The Russian artillery opens up. Bourgogne describes the sound of the bridge snapping. He hears the scream of 10,000 voices as they hit the ice-cold water. He watches men treading water, clinging to cakes of ice, until their hearts simply stop. He crosses, barely, stepping over a carpet of frozen corpses that have become a permanent part of the riverbank. Failure seems certain when Bourgogne collapses in the snow, unable to move his legs. He is alone. The wind is howling. He prepares to die. But the memory of his home in France, and the sight of a fellow guardsman in the distance, forces him to crawl. He drags himself an inch at a time until he can stand. He is a ghost in a bearskin cap. The burning of Moscow was the moment the Napoleonic myth died. The strategic consequences were total. Napoleon had entered Russia to dictate terms to a vassal. He left Russia with his army shattered beyond repair. He lost 500,000 men and, more importantly, 200,000 trained cavalry horses that France could never replace. What they didn't know at the time was that this scorched earth victory would redefine the limits of national resistance. The enemy command, the Russian generals like Kutuzov, had gambled that their people would rather see their holiest city burn than see a Frenchman rule it. They were right. The true impact wouldn't be understood until the following year. Seeing the Grande Armée destroyed, the rest of Europe, Prussia, Austria, and the German states, finally found the courage to rise. The War of Liberation began. The fire of Moscow had provided the spark that set the rest of the continent ablaze against the French eagle. Napoleon would never again be the hunter. For the rest of his life, he would be the hunted. The retreat from Moscow led directly to the Battle of Leipzig, the invasion of France, and the eventual silence of St. Helena. Return to Adrien Bourgogne. Against all odds, he made it back to France. He survived the cold, the Cossacks, and the hunger. He lived to be an old man, dying in 1867 at the age of 82. He spent his final years writing his memoirs, not to celebrate the glory of the emperor, but to honor the men who disappeared into the Russian snow. He wanted the world to know what it felt like to be part of a victory that felt like the end of the world. To this day, the 1812 campaign remains the ultimate warning of military overreach. It is the story of how a sick and retreating army used their own suffering as a weapon. It tells us that geography and climate are more powerful than any artillery battery, and that a nation's will is more flammable than its timber. The men of the 1st Regiment of Foot Grenadiers were the elite of the world. By the time they reached Poland, only a handful remained. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served in a conflict where the environment was the greatest enemy. Thank you for ensuring that Adrien Bourgogne and the 500,000 men of the Grande Armée do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.